Welcome back to Becoming Unbound, the podcast where we break free from the roles, rules, and realities that were never truly ours. If you've ever felt the ache of misalignment, the guilt of choosing yourself, or the pit in your stomach as you walk into a life that doesn't feel like yours anymore, this episode is for you. Today, I'm joined by Alexis Cook, intuitive somatic coach and founder of Intuitively Aligned. After a powerful wake up call, Alexis left the job that was draining her soul, pulled her daughter from daycare, and bet on herself when no one else understood why. We talk about building a business from rock bottom, navigating motherhood with intention, and how to listen when your body starts to whisper or scream. So, here's your question as you listen. What if your body's discomfort isn't something to fix, but something to follow? All right, Alexis, welcome to Becoming Unbound, the podcast where we talk about all things freedom and how we kind of break free of these boxes that society just loves to put us in. So I would love to jump straight in to a little bit about who you are, your journey to becoming unbound. What are you doing now that looks more like freedom to you? And I'll kind of hand things over. Where are you at right now in your life? Tell us your journey.
Beautiful. Thank you. Well, thank you so much for having me here. I'm so excited. Uh, the word freedom itself just, for me, carries this certain vibration that just like I feel it move through my entire body. So this just felt so aligned to be here. So thank you again. Wow, my journey. It's been a journey. Um, where I am now is a space I was actually just reflecting a little bit before hopping on here of how much freedom I truly have right now. And I'm not at my end goal, right? I'm not coming live from my yacht right now. However, I've just really taken some time to notice and pause and be like, wow, I really have created freedom, and it's been through my purpose, through my passions, and on my own terms. So that's what becoming unbound means to me, in a quick little succinct fashion. However, my journey to getting to where I am right now, my big wake up moment, I guess I would say, is I was working as an LNA on a neurotrauma unit. I was making $15 an hour, traveling over an hour and a half just one way, flip flopping between days and nights to make that night differential, but that meant I was sleeping in parking lots because I was so exhausted. I was missing out on uh, my three daughters, their lives. I wasn't seeing them for days, weeks at a time. And then one day, my youngest, she was about 18, 19 months old at the time, she was left outside for nearly an hour, completely alone at her daycare. And that was my moment that just stopped me in my tracks. And I was like, wait a second, who am I living for? Because it's certainly not me. It's certainly not for my children if this is what's happening while I'm off doing something that doesn't even provide for us in a way that we're still not in so much struggle. Um, so I did some really wild things that made no sense. like, I quit my job right away. I pulled my daughter from daycare. I invested in myself when I didn't even have the money to have heat in my house, because I realized that I was going to be the one that was going to change my story for myself and for my family. And now today, I am an intuitive somatic coach. I I help people to create their own form of freedom in their lives.
I love that. And I love so much that you said the first thing you said was like, I'm not coming to you live from my yacht. And I think that's like the essence of what freedom is. And because it's not about the yacht, it's not about the hundreds of, vacations that you take. It's not necessarily, I mean, those things can be great and that can be sort of a byproduct of what you create through freedom. But sometimes freedom doesn't have to mean like, oh, I just do nothing. I don't work. I go on vacations. I eat lavish foods or whatever it is. It's like, no, I have freedom over my own time. I get to spend time with my children. I get to control where we go, what schooling, what education they have, like that to me, and why I love breaking down the definition of freedom for everyone who comes on the podcast is because it means something different to everyone. So spending that time with your babies, that is freedom. Like, and it doesn't have to look like sending them to like the best private school because even then still you're still not with them. Like that time that you have with them is so precious, and like having the freedom to choose to do that, that is so cool. So talk to us a little bit about that moment that you were like, no, no, I can't do this anymore. I want to dive a little bit more deeper into that because that must have been scary, nerve-wracking, and like a holy shit moment for you.
Yeah, a holy shit moment is an understatement. Um, yeah, I mean, I'll never forget the actual moment. I was actually with my older two daughters and my partner at a local fair. We were standing below the Ferris wheel, and I got a phone call and found out that what had happened, at the daycare. And it was just like, those moments where you just have this flood, like this full body flood. Um, that was it for me. And I was almost like I was dumbfounded. Like I didn't even it I couldn't quite grasp what was actually being said to me. I was like, how? Like what? Um, and I had already begun the process at my work to kind of scale back my schedule because I was like, what am I even doing here? Like what I was doing, you know, my floor was such a heavy floor. It was a step down from the ICU. I was providing, postmortem care for $15 an hour. That's what I was doing with my time. Um, and so much more, but that's just a little glimpse into what was happening in my world. And so I already knew like I was getting the signals and the call and the pulls from the universe in different areas. And it felt to me as if that was like the universe being like, okay, you're not going to make this move on your own. We're going to push you along. So it was like that, holy shit, like I can't I can't come back from this and have the trust in this moment to be able to allow my baby, she's my youngest, so my baby to remain in this place where she's ultimately unsafe. So I was terrified. I knew that it was time to make a change, but yeah, it was scary. I was losing any form of income that I had when I was already struggling. We were already in a really tough spot financially. Um, but I also knew that I have some really special gifts to share. And I've always felt that. And I had dabbled for years. My entrepreneurial journey, it's not new. It's just finally blooming into what it's meant to be and has always been meant to be. I'm also a psychic medium. So I started doing some readings and just kind of putting myself out there. Very scary to do because, you tell someone, oh, yeah, I'm a psychic. And they're like, okay. um, so it was really just this overwhelming sense of this isn't what's meant for me. This isn't the life I was meant to lead. This isn't the life that I'm meant to provide for my children and my girls. I have three daughters. They deserve to know what's possible for them by watching their mom just full send. So it was really like, I'm going to bet on myself. This is my time. Everything has shown me that I am fully out of alignment. I have no freedom, to be able to move through my days as I wish. And it's time to make that leap.
Beautiful. Scary,
Mm,
but beautiful.
mhm.
And I think this is what I've talked to so many people, and even in my own journey, it's like once you know that whatever you were doing before doesn't work, the next step, although scary, it always comes in these moments where you're like, I have no freedom, I have no money. I have like it's in these moments where you reach either like maybe not rock bottom, but like pretty damn near close to what feels like complete shackling of like, yeah, you're going working nights, not being around your babies. Your babies are in a place where you don't feel safe. And I'm sure that daycare, like things happen all the time. It's out of their, not out of their control, but like these things happen. But like to me, who better than to care for our babies and our children than us? Like I don't have kids yet, but I am inspired by those who take the time to like understand what it means to take that time to raise their own kids like from and not feel the need to send them to daycare because they're in a job that has them stuck to pay for the daycare and like, sometimes it just things don't add up. And so I want to talk to you about that moment that you decided you're like, okay, I'm not in alignment. I've been feeling these feelings, these whispers from all of the places in my brain. I've been dabbling. How did you start to be like, okay, like let's get into a little bit of the logistics here for our listeners who are like, well, I'm feeling the same way. I'm not aligned. I'm working some job that doesn't even pay my bills. I'm away from my kids or I'm away from my family or I'm, a slave to a system that doesn't work for me anymore. What did you first start to do? Like, what was the first thing that dropped?
Yeah. Well, this isn't going to make sense probably, but I invested in myself. I hired a coach. That was the
Mm.
first thing I did, because I felt so pulled, that I knew where I wanted to go, but like the steps to get there were hazy. I wasn't sure like how do I even begin to do this? And I yeah, I hired a coach who's one of my very best friends. We worked together at this fair trade fashion company, and we were both leaders within the company. However, she was like skyrocket. She was someone that inspired me, and I was like, all right, I want to surround myself by the people who are doing the things I want to be doing, and that was her. So that was my first step. It was like, okay, this might not make any sense, and if I were to tell anyone what I was doing, they would tell me I'm crazy. And maybe I am a little bit, but I knew that I needed to stop trying to force my way through on my own and, like push and push and push and feel as if every move I make is a fight that I'm having to fight in order to simply survive. Um, I was ready to invite in support and someone who has already walked the path that I'm wanting to be walking. I was like, I see the value in that. I understand that I don't have this money and I understand be um that it's piling up debt, and I see that it's going to be the first step of the real momentum that I'm seeking to break me free from that debt, from the place that I'm at.
Wow. So you essentially went back to school.
Yeah.
Like in a roundabout way, you kind of decided to invest in yourself and invest in a new form of education. And that form of education was you learning how to use your specific beautiful skill set, not knowing where to really take it, but like you hired someone who was doing what you wanted to do and for them to basically walk you through a structure and a framework of how to become your own boss and take back the power.
Mhm.
And I think like and you probably joined a community, yes?
Yes,
Somewhat
yeah.
like the people who usually when you hire a coach, you're also welcomed into their community. And I think yeah, what you're saying, like to most people wouldn't make any sense. You're like, yeah, I just racked on an entire like course load and a whole bunch of debt to try to in already in the financial struggles that I was in. But I think like this is, and I resonate so deeply with this because at my bottom, I also hired a coach. And I know there's like a lot of people who are like coaching, whatever, like coaches who try to, I don't know, like the world of coaching, I think has some, I don't know, there's some taboo things about it, like hiring a coach. What, like they're not I don't know, but I just think it's so powerful to find somebody that you trust that is doing what you've done or doing what you want to do and putting your faith into them and really modeling your own framework and your own business to people who are doing it and really walking the walk because it's really, really hard to like start your own business without a framework and without knowing, like I have this skill set, what do I do? So I think that's a really brilliant, smart thing to do. And I think hiring coaches or other professionals who have done that, like, it's a great first step. If you don't know where you're going, but you know you're not in an alignment, sometimes these coaches will ask you the tough questions. They will provide the structure. They will be able to see maybe what you don't see, the skill sets that maybe you haven't even thought about. That's amazing. And so talk to us a little bit about the sort of journey. You are an intuitive somatic worker, healer, and what does that look like? Like how are you I imagine you're providing freedoms to a lot of people in their bodies, understanding and breaking through messages with psychic readings and stuff like that. Like how does that play into freedom? Because I feel like it's all so aligned and like juicy and just makes so much sense.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, and I couldn't agree more with that. Um, hiring a coach when it doesn't even make sense because truly we heal in connection, and we heal through repetition. And so what I do now as, an intuitive somatic coach, I am a board certified clinical hypnotherapist, in NLP, EFT, time techniques, in all kinds of things, life and success coaching and somatic coaching. And what I am really passionate about is dropping people out of their head and into their body, because that is where everything is stored. That is the basis of everything. And as well, accessing the subconscious mind. Because no matter how hard we try or how desperately we want to, we cannot think our way out of what's happening beneath the surface, what's running on autopilot in the subconscious or happening within the body. So, what I do is I partner with people who are serious about making change and are ready for transformation. And no matter what that looks like, it doesn't matter what stage of the game you're at, right? How long you've been on a healing journey. It's really about being able to access those patterns, those programs that are looping and create a new way because your brain is malleable. You don't, what has always been doesn't have to continue to be. So through, the tools that I have, the modalities that I'm trained and certified in, paired with my natural intuitive gifts, it's really beautiful. I love to, I hold really high touch containers because I am a firm believer that we heal in connection, and that we heal in presence without an agenda. So being able to be that safe and sacred space for someone, it makes a world of difference.
That's perfect. And I resonate a lot with that because there was so much in my body when I discovered that I was out of alignment. And I'm sure maybe you could feel this too when you were waking up, going to work, that feeling that you got in your stomach when you got that call or in your heart or wherever it is. Like I remember having, and I've talked about this before, but this pit of anxiety in my belly. And like it was honestly, it was like it was hard for my body to walk through the frame of my door, to get into my car,
Mhm.
to go to school. And I mean, now I know it and hindsight's 2020, but like that pit in my stomach was real. Like that wasn't just like, and I think we think about it with kids, right? Like if they're ever feeling like, mommy, I have a tummy ache or like, oh, I don't feel good. And like, although sometimes like they do get smart and they understand that sometimes, it's just like how you're learning that like if you have a tummy ache, sometimes that means other things. But like those feelings in your body, whether it's a tightness in your chest or an ache in your like hips or something like that, like those are super real and they are signs. And I think that's a really beautiful way of like tying back into the idea of like not being in alignment, because when you're not in alignment, I feel, and I can be a testament to this, that like there were feelings and symptoms in my body that were like alarm bells going off, being like, girl, you are not like, something isn't right here. Maybe you don't have all the answers right away, but something isn't right. So, did you have those feelings when you were going to work and dropping your babies off at daycare? Like, how did that come up for you? Did you feel all of that?
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, my strongest sense is feeling. My strongest psychic sense is I'm a feeler. So I feel everything. And yes, like our body is always listening and our body is always speaking. And, sometimes it's like a gentle whisper until it can't whisper anymore. It needs to yell to get your attention. So yeah, I was having so many symptoms, and there's so many physical symptoms that will manifest from an energetic or an emotional issue, because everything is connected. We're so much more than our skin and bones. We have our energy body, our spiritual body, our mental, our emotional. We have so many layers to our being. And with our energy, which everything is energy, if we are spending our time and our energy and our resources in spaces and places that don't serve us, those are going to imprint on our energy. They're going to create you know, lack of flow within our energy and stagnation. And that will then manifest in a physical symptom, whether it's that tightness in your chest, whether it's that pit in your stomach, or, achiness in your body, or just that overall sense of just being lethargic, of not wanting to move because your body's like, no, we've had enough. Like, this isn't where we're meant to be anymore. And ultimately, your subconscious and your body, they're working towards self-preservation always. That's their end goal. But the thing is, if you have proven, because your system needs to see it to believe it for you to be able to achieve it. So if you have proven that you can survive your current circumstances, no matter how shitty they are, your system is like, great, job done. You're surviving. So that is why we get stuck in those places. And your body, those symptoms will get louder and louder and louder until you're like, oh, okay, that did serve me. All those little parts and protectors, they're serving a purpose, and they have served you up until this moment. However, when you are realizing that you have outgrown wherever it is you are, that's when it's time to dive deep, into the body, into the subconscious, to be able to rewire what's running on a loop to match what it is that you want to create. Conscious thinking alone can't take you there, because this blew my mind when I learned this. We're constantly taking in 2.3 million bits per second of information, and we take that in through our senses. The conscious mind can only process about 126 bits per second. So that is a massive discrepancy. And that right there shows that everything that we take in, it's going right into that subconscious because the conscious can't handle it. And from there, it's being deleted, distorted, or generalized based upon what that loop is that's running in the subconscious. So, whatever system and strategy and parts and protectors have brought you to where you are today, that's what's happening. So, getting in there and being able to shift that is what really shifts your reality.
That makes so much sense. Yeah. I mean, we're constantly taking in stuff and understanding. And I love what you said, like, you can't think your way out of this. And yeah, when you're not in alignment with something, you're like, okay, but my job is safe and secure. And my job is in a box that like is socially acceptable. And my kids are taken care of, and there's all these systems in place in society where you're like, well, we're all doing okay. We did all the things that, like, the daycares are there, the jobs are there, the schedules that we run on, and like the Monday to Friday, like everything feels like we did what we needed to do. We're surviving. But it isn't until you kind of get those loud yells, and they usually start as whispers, and then the loud yells from the body, and maybe instances and moments and synchronicities where all of a sudden you're like, yeah, something isn't right, and my brain can't help me here in a way. Like, the mind is so funny because you're like, well, we're doing all right, we're fine, and our nervous system is gonna just we're just coasting on. And I think, like, just understanding that, you don't have to just keep going in the same way that you have been forever because it's safe and because it's secure. It doesn't have to be that way. There is a different way. There's a million other ways to do this life. Like, I know in the Western world, we're like very set in these boxes, but it doesn't have to be that way. So tell me about, like, your success story now, because you realized it wasn't working. You got out, you hired a coach. What does your day feel like now? Like, let's dive into a little bit of more of, like, the freedoms that you have right now. What does that look like for you?
Yeah. Well, this summer specifically has been just amazing. Um, I actually recently even hired on a virtual assistant team. So I'm able to, outsource a little bit more, which feels really good and spacious. I like slow mornings are one of my favorite things in the world. Not being rushed, being able to just have that slowness, that steadiness, um, is how I start my days, and it just feels so good. You know, um, my girls, they're all going to be starting. Well, my youngest is going into kindergarten in the fall, so there's going to be that that big transition. But really, it's like I wake up, I move slow. I actually enjoy my Americano. I am able to set my own schedule, so I set it so that I can like go for my morning walk, I can make breakfast and hang out with the girls, and I can do all of these things. So I have this really beautiful cadence to my day where I have that spaciousness because that's how I work best. And then I'm also able to show up and serve because I have that really spacious is the only word that's coming to me. I have that really spacious flow throughout my day where I'm able to then really laser focus when it comes time to work because I myself am filled. We've been doing a lot of going to the ocean this summer, which is so nice. We have a place where we just go and can stay, and we wake up and Matt and I get our coffee, the girls get donuts, we go for a walk on the beach, um, and we just hang out. And then I'm able to really ebb and flow my time to put my clients in where it works best for them and for me, because I do keep things so open. And I take on a rather small client load at a time because I do really enjoy having that high touch container and availability, and having that breathability is really important to me and the integrity of my work as well as my life.
Beautiful. Slow mornings are something that I've actually struggled with a little bit in this new found freedom that I have moved through. And I don't know if maybe you felt this too, but, like, there was this unspoken guilt at first
Mhm.
that it was like a slow morning. Like, I was like, it was 6 a.m., get up, try to maybe get a workout in, get out the door, get some. I mostly was skipping breakfast, trying to get to the school to do, because I was a teacher, and trying to be there for the bell and, like, being on someone else's schedule. So when I stopped that, it was like, whoa, I can just, like, have a coffee, and, like, there's no end time, and there's no, like, rush, and there's no, like, specific time that I need to do it. Like, I can start work between 9 and 9:30. If there's a day where I'm not, like, maybe I'm feeling not my best, my energy's not the best as out of that month, like, maybe I start work at 10, and that's okay. But there was a guilt. Oh my goodness, there was such a guilt in that process. Did you feel that at all?
Yeah, it's like just stumbling upon a complete foreign territory, you know? It's like, wait a second, I actually am in control of how this goes. Like, no one's going to tell me I need to be somewhere at this time. And if I'm not there, then I need to have a reason and I better have a good reason. And, it's like, and I mean, I started working when I was 12 years old. Like, I had three jobs in high school. I mean, I wasn't even old enough to have my license, and I had keys to this ice cream shop that I'd ride my bike down to and open and close myself. Like, I'm not afraid of working. I never have been. Um, However, I've never fit in that model. I just haven't. So coming out of that and being into that, like, wait a second, there was a lot of freeze that happened for me because it was
Mm.
like it was overwhelming. I was like, wait a second, I have to structure what I'm gonna do? Like, what makes the most sense? And so it was like I did experience more than guilt. I experienced that freeze of like, okay, I guess I'm just gonna sit here and think about all the things that I should be doing because I don't even know where to start. Um, so working through that was a certainly a process. um, but yeah, it was very eye opening. What it took to kind of get into a flow of a schedule, even with that freedom, being able to choose. It was like not anything my nervous system was used to.
Yeah, that's beautiful, and I think it takes some time, right? Because like, you do all of a sudden, you're like, you have all this time, and I remember just being like, I think I'm spending too much time, like, just exploring this space, like, just not even knowing what to do, and I think we all, like, with becoming unbound and unbinding yourself from these systems, I think one of the important things that you just brought up is that, like, there is some structure
Uh-huh.
that has to happen. It's just that you create that structure. I think as human beings, there's a structure, like there's a natural structure, like every day the sun comes up and it goes down at a certain time. Like there is some very natural rhythms, and like depending on where you live in the world, like there's winter and fall. And like we do go through that, and it happens like clockwork all the time. And we also have to create things like that. And I believe we thrive on stuff like that. So when you do finally kind of like break free, take off those shackles, like there is that moment where you kind of have to unlearn, but then you creep back into like, oh no, wait, I like a structure, but it's going to be my structure. And I'm going to spend the time doing what I want to do, like based on my priorities and my value system. Like moving my body every single day is something that I value. And I really want to put structure in and time into that and make sure it works with you. Maybe, doing a yoga class, maybe going to a coffee shop to like talk to the people is a priority for you because you're really social and you just want to spend an hour, chatting with people in a cafe. Like whatever it is that your value system is, all of a sudden you're like, oh, I get to choose what's important to me. Like, and that is so cool, whether it's having just like sit down breakfast with your kids. Um, so I have a question, and it's not a pushback, but like I believe a lot of our feelings of fitting into society's boxes come from school. So are you at all nervous or worried about like your daughters in school? Like how do you navigate, and I know like school is what you could like, I don't know. I'd love to know what your feelings are around like how you navigate that with your girls to understand that like there is a bell structure and you learn the things you're supposed to learn, and like how does that sit in your family?
Yeah, that's a great question. I love that. I have, for me, my outlook is I am able to instill, um, I guess, like a structure. Of course, my daughters are receiving from my values, beliefs, whether I'm putting them on them or not, just in the way that we live our lives. And I believe that it's so important for children to receive access to the same tools that I use with my clients. So things that I do with my girls is I really freedom is something that I actually talk about a lot. their freedom to be able to choose the life that they want to live. I I just had a conversation yesterday with um, my middle daughter, because she was a dancer for 7 years probably, and then took a little break. And then she's been dancing everywhere. And I'm like, hey, Lila, you can get back into dance if you want to. And she was like, no, I don't want to do the same thing that everyone else is doing for a dance. I want to do my own. And I was like, well, if you want to be able to be choreograph, how you start is by dancing, continuing that through that. And she was like, oh, wow. So I really just like to have those conversations with them about what it is that they love. What does freedom mean to them? Letting them know that the possibilities are endless, that they themselves are limitless, despite what might seem as if it's reality because of the things that they're told and taught. However, I am very grateful, for the school system that we have here. There's some really amazing people in our education system, and I believe that to be true, everywhere. I believe that people who are dedicated to teaching youth are superhuman. And I believe that the majority of them are really there for the purest of pure reasons. Um, so really what I do is I work on building their foundation of their own intuition and self-trust, helping them to embody what it is that they care about, and really showing them that they are limitless, that their everything is available to them, in any fashion, that they desire it to be. And I try to model that through my behavior, and showing them that like you can, you can, no matter what. Um, so I guess I there are, things that I agree with that I don't agree with. However, overall, I really just focus on what I'm able to do within my household and the foundation I'm able to help my daughters build.
I love that. Yeah, it makes so much sense. And I think you kind of like it would be so nice to just keep them in this little bubble and like just be like, no, this is how the world is and trust me. And like, but I also think like exposure to what else is happening in the world and like the schooling and stuff. And I think it's beautiful that, like, you have this way of enriching them to be like and I'm sure, like, as a somatic practitioner, like, there's so many beautiful things that you would be able to gift to your girls, and, like, if they do have something in school where they're like, "Huh, that didn't feel right to me," or "That didn't sit right with me," like, then being able to be like, "Okay, there's a reason for that, let's dive into that," versus, like and just having that awareness and then creating, like, a bigger, larger container for them to come home and like talk about things that maybe they heard something and they're like, oh, that doesn't make sense to me, and you can talk through that with them, and providing that foundation to ask bigger questions, to understand that, like, although you are told or shown this way, there's lots of other ways of doing it that way. And, teachers do their best, and you can't always provide exactly what children need to explore every single question. Although I know that that's what teachers in their heart of hearts want. They work with what they've got in the systems and the classrooms that they have. And I've worked with some really amazing education practitioners, and I believe I was one myself. But that's beautiful that you can also like take both sort of ways and practices and sort of meld them together and create that foundation for your girls. That's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
So when you talk to your girls about freedom and what you kind of define it for them and for yourself, like what does that look like? What does freedom mean to you?
Yeah. It's so funny. The first thing that always pops into my mind is slow mornings.
Okay,
For
okay.
me, freedom is really the ability to move throughout your day and allowing those pulls and whispers of your intuition to be your guide, allowing that to be the way in which you move and you show up, allowing your heart to truly lead the way without, barrier, without any form of blocks being up to prevent that from happening, but really being able to be so connected to yourself, um, to your authenticity, um, and to your intuition, and being able to allow those things to lead the way in which you show up and move throughout wherever it is that you are brought, but being able to be brought to those places without any resistance.
Beautifully said. I love that, and I think it sort of sounds like I wanna make sure that, like, we're also understanding that there is life responsibilities that have to happen, like, breaking free and becoming unbound isn't just this, like, thing that we do and all of a sudden all the responsibilities go out the windows, but I think it's really like, yes, I have those responsibilities to take care of, but, like, you decide.
Mhm.
Like, isn't that so cool that, like, yes, there's a list and life gets lifey and things get messy, and I think becoming unbound doesn't mean you just, like, drop all the structures, drop all the responsibilities, and you're just like, I don't even know how to describe it, but sometimes it sounds a little, like, woo-woo, like, we just sorta let it all go, and I think for a time, you kind of almost have to, but I think it's also about, like, understanding that, like, all of those life tasks and things that get done and clients that need to be seen and projects that get taken on and like the work that you do to be your own entrepreneur, it just means that like it's on your own terms.
Right.
That's all that means. And I think that feeling in and of itself is way more powerful and like potent than I think anyone who's still in those kind of like working for someone else or working for someone else's vision or dream. And I think once you get even a taste of that being on your own terms, like, it's so hard to go back to, and
Right.
yet you're still serving clients and getting life done and doing all of the responsibilities of, raising children and having a home, like, all of that is still there, like, none of that goes away.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't mean it's easy, but it's
No.
definitely worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and that's so true. There is a balance, as like I look at it because I mean I've been in the world of energetics for 15 years. It feels like that's my
Yeah.
actual first language. But of the masculine and the feminine, right? The feminine is the receiving and the masculine is the doing. So you need to have both. Because nothing changes if nothing changes. So if you're just going to be like, okay, I'm going to sit back and be like, okay, universe, just take the wheel, you know, that'd be great. But that's not the way it works. Can you get um, information? We're constantly receiving information, but it's our job to be able to then take that information and turn it into aligned action. So, yes,
Mhm.
there's life is always going to life, no matter what. I don't care how long you've been on a healing journey. I don't care, if you are on your private yacht, like life is going to life. And so being able to remain in a space where you can really ride the waves, where you can have and to be with what is, while also being able to lean into and play with those edges to be able to go into a space of overflow, right? So it is such a balance. It I You're not going to wake up and be like, everything is so great every second, That's not the way it works. It's a lot of work. Like entrepreneurship in itself, you got to be gritty. You really do. However, it's really about choosing your hard, right? Because no
Mhm.
matter what, getting up and going to a job that you hate every day, that's hard. It might pay the bills, but it's hard. Starting your own business and, running everything on your own terms, still very hard. However, it's it what what do you value? Do you feel free and spacious within that, box of the 9 to 5, or do you feel free and spacious in creating your own thing, and being able to have more freedom in the ways in which you choose to move through life? Either way is hard. You get to choose your hard, but nothing changes if nothing changes, and you are ultimately the one that gets to decide.
I love that. Yes, choose your hard because entrepreneurship and working for yourself is a whole new game and it doesn't mean that everyone has to go quit their 9 to 5 and go start their own business. Like I truly don't feel that that is like the answer for everybody. I think there could be some but just know that there could be another way to do it. Like working for a big company where you're just a number and you are hating it every single day and there's a knot in your stomach, like just know that that is not like that doesn't have to that
It's not a life sentence.
right. It's not a life sentence. And there's another way to do it. And you also don't have to run out and open your own business or do something else. You could find another aligned person where you believe in their vision and you want to work alongside them. Like everyone's got their thing that they can do. And I think it's about just like finding the thing that works for you and allowing yourself to learn what freedom means to you and whether it's like doing a value practice through ChatGPT or understanding a little bit more about yourself or like really just sitting and meditating and understanding what is important to you and trying to do life just a little bit closer to that
Mhm.
is still perfect. Like we don't always have to like drop everything and although we both kind of seems like we both did that. um
Yeah.
it can be little baby steps. So if you were to go back and sort of like for yourself, if you're looking back now to your younger self, what would you kind of say to them to be like if they are sort of feeling these whispers? What advice would you give to them or somebody who was in that situation?
Yeah. I would the first thing that comes to mind is, don't wait so long to share your gifts with the world.
Mm,
It's okay to be seen for who you are. Um, eh, I think that a lot of the times we can we can take on the masks, that have been placed on us from external sources of other people's versions of us, right? We're a different version in everyone's story. And sometimes we'll take those on as our truth. And so for me, I feel like I would tell my younger self that those are just masks. They're not you. And to really allow yourself to shine for who you are, for your gifts, for your magic, for your medicine, because the world truly does need it.
yeah, and we don't need that identity that everyone's placed on you.
Mhm.
Like you don't need to be that nurse. Like that doesn't have to be who you are. Like who do you feel actually on your inside? Like
Mm.
I think those identities serve you for a certain amount of time and then you can understand that like that no longer serves and it's maybe time to figure out who the heck you are without those identities that have been placed on you. I think that's beautiful. So Alexis, as we wrap up, I just want to thank you for coming on the podcast today. And if someone is interested in finding you, knowing more about your work and the containers that you have, where can they find you?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. I am most active on Instagram, actually. So finding me on Instagram, sending me a message, it's super simple. I'm at intuitively_aligned. Um, Also, just reaching out through email is a great way to connect. And that's just hello@beintuitivelyaligned.com. But yeah, I'm always happy to connect. I am creating some really fun, amazing kind of community based things going on, virtual communities. So there's a lot to come to be able to connect with me. But if you just want to connect and see um, if there's a way that I could, come alongside you and support you in any capacity, then just come hang out over on Instagram, say hi. I'm always happy to connect.
Awesome. Well, I will put all of that in the show notes and people can head to Instagram and find out your offerings. And it sounds like, I don't know, it feels like you've really got a beautiful understanding of what it means to kind of work through life and go with the flow and really tap into that like deep inner knowing, which I think if you're listening to this podcast, like that's maybe one of the first steps is like really hearing what your body has to say, what your inner authentic self has to say. So, if anyone wants to connect with you, I'm sure that would be great and a perfect first one of the perfect first steps if someone's looking to become a little more unbound in their life.
Absolutely.
All
Absolutely.
right. Well, thank you so much, Alexis. I've so enjoyed this conversation. And yeah, I feel like we'll have to have you back on the podcast because this has been so amazing. And I want to hear more and more and more about your offerings and everything that you're experiencing. So thank you so, so much.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. This has been so much fun.
All right, friends. Thank you so much for tuning in to Becoming Unbound, the podcast where we are breaking free, figuring out what is truly in our path and going with the flow to understand a little bit more about ourselves and how we become unbound in a world that sometimes doesn't feel very free at all. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you liked this episode and it sort of lit a fire underneath you, send it to someone, like, subscribe, and we will see you on the next episode.